Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the webinar, Lesson Planning, Spice Up and Simplify. This webinar is designed for the beginning of the year to help you get systems in place and spice up your lessons, but can be valuable for any time of the year for these two things if you're ever feeling like you're stuck in a rut or need some extra support with lesson planning. So here's a little about me. My name is Susan Patterson. I am an ESL teacher or multilingual learner teacher and coach. I'm a current multilingual learner TOSA with my district. I have a blog. I love writing on it and sharing strategies to help teachers and especially new teachers. I have a monthly membership for teacher support. I think you can see a theme here. I love to support other teachers. I'm a fur baby and human mom, obsessed with wellness and also nature. Curly hair is a new thing for me. As you see in that picture, I was not embracing my curly hair yet. Now I'm a curly hair wearer. And I'm also a lifelong learner. I want to offer you a freebie at the end, so stay tuned. That's a good one. Might be a couple of things I got for you. So as always, we want to start with our content and language objectives. Our content objective is I can identify strategies to simplify and spice up my lessons. Language objective, I can list strategies for simplifying and spicing in a graphic organizer. I made up that word, spicing. Yes, I know it's not a word. I made it up. Feel free to use it. Okay, so here's a warm-up for you. I want you to just think to yourself, rate on a scale of 1 to 3. Number 1, my curriculum is engaging for my multilingual learners. Number 2, my lessons are engaging for my multilingual learners or MLLs. And number 3, I have a system in place to simplify my lesson planning. Do you have these? How are you feeling about these? Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 3. And these are things we'll be diving into throughout this session together. So I want to start with this. We know our students the best. We know their English language proficiency levels. We know their cultural and academic backgrounds. We know their interests. And we know all of the assets that they bring to our classroom, to our school, and to our district. Does your curriculum know this? No, it does not. So sometimes we might need to spice things up a little bit and customize things for our students. All right, so teachers alone are the ones who bring our lessons alive. It's all about that teacher voice, that teacher sparkle, right? So we can get students engaged and swirling, speaking, writing, interacting, reading, and listening. We can add their interests to lessons. We can embrace translanguaging for belonging and to aid in comprehension. And we can customize lessons by using strategies for language growth. So sometimes we might have a curriculum, sometimes we don't. Sometimes our curriculum has great supports in them, and sometimes they only have like, here, use these visuals and these sentence frames. We know that's not enough. We do need to customize for our students who we deeply know and we see every day, right? So to bring our lessons alive, I just love her curly hair. I love it. I need to try to get mine like that. To bring our lessons alive, things we can do are add in our humor, right? Like I might not be the funniest person, but hey, look, I just added in that little comment about curly hair. Do it. You don't have to be a robot, right? Add some things in. We can add a sense of belonging for our students. We can add our personal voice to lessons. We can add some drama. What's great with my newly arrived students, just using gestures, your tone of voice, your facial expressions. These are all wonderful things for our multilingual students. And of course, flexibility and humility. With my students, I would always try to attempt to learn their language. I had more than just Spanish. I'm not a fluent Spanish speaker either by any means, but I would always say, you know what? I'm going to try to learn and speak your language. I know it's going to sound probably bad, but that's okay. And I'm modeling that for you. That's okay when you're speaking English. No one is judging, right? Not in this classroom. Nobody is. So, but before all this, there's one thing you need first. What is the thing? Let's find out. What is that thing? We really need a system for lesson planning. We really do, right? And if you don't have one, or you might already have a system, but it's always good to reevaluate and say, is this working for me? Do I need to change things up a little bit, right? There's not just one great system. So teaching is an art, right? It is an art. But we do want to make sure that we have some of our best practices in our lessons. Using a framework like this class framework that I make sure that I refer and use when I'm making my lesson plans for our monthly membership. We want to make sure that we have content, right? Grade level content would be great. Sometimes we need to differentiate though, right? And there is a time and a place for that. But students do need to see that grade level content. That's equity and access. We need to make sure there's language integrated, it's language rich. We're looking at strategies to get students to swirl. We're looking at strategies for vocabulary, for sentence structures, and for discourse. Any additional materials we can bring in. It's just like bringing in our teacher voice. We can bring in real life materials to bring things alive. We can add in supplemental materials, like maybe we need to add in a Newsella article, right? And put it at their Lexile level. And we always want to include student scaffolds. And these student scaffolds are always temporary and fluid. So they can change. So getting your system in place, systematizing. Some ways that I like to do this is to create a template from previous lessons. So I like to use Google Slides. If you're a PowerPoint person, you can do this too, but using Google Slides, I just make a copy from a lesson I felt went really well and had good flow and included the things I wanted. I make copies from those and I just change what I feel I need to. We'll look at that a little bit later. What should we change? What should we keep? I like to have a bank of strategies to choose from, and I like to know what to change out and what to keep, right? So having these things in mind can really help you systematize your lesson planning so you're not lesson planning all weekend or in the evening. I will say one thing I do not do or did not do was lesson plan on the weekend. That was my thing. I'm not doing it. And I didn't do it. I found a system instead. So being digital, doing digital lesson plans is the easiest for you to change out and keep things. I know a lot of us are like pencil and paper people. I am, but then when I get to the actual lesson, I do it digitally. So keep your lesson plan, the flow, the structure. For example, you always start out maybe with a bell ringer, right? Then you might do some explicit direct instruction. So I would always fall gradual release of responsibility, and that was really helpful. or that is very helpful. Keep your texts. You don't have to change your text every day. You might be working with the same text all week. Keep it. So that depends on your tasks that you want students to do. And it also depends on your curriculum, right? If you have to follow a curriculum. But normally you'll spend at least a couple days on a text. You don't have to always switch those out. You can keep your standards and objectives, you know, based on your task and curriculum. I usually had one that was like an overarching objective and standard, and then I might switch out my target, like for that day standard, daily standard. But you can get away with keeping those for a couple of days. You don't have to switch them out, but it all depends. Keep your closure. You can always have your closure just be, you know what, it's a whole group discussion. Here's some sentence stems and frames. This is what we're doing for the week, and then change out your closure for the following week. So whatever you feel like works with your students for closing out the lesson, keep it. Change out. Let's change out the strategies, your warm-ups or your bell work or bell ringer, any mini lessons or explicit instruction you need to give, exit tickets, and scaffolds. So keep those big chunks. Change out some of the smaller things, and you will get used to this, and it will go so fast once you've already had your system. It'll be done. You'll be so happy that you got your system in place. In the beginning of the year is just the best way to do it, but it's never too late. So all of this, again, is dependent on your texts you're using and also your students' individual needs. So changing out your scaffolds, that depends on your students, right? Your mini lessons. If you need to reteach something, that depends on your students. So there's different factors and variables involved. All right, scaffolding. Let me get my face back in there. Okay, scaffolding. So I have a scaffolding cheat sheet that I like to keep. And it's just super easy to refer to it and to know, okay, first of all, my students who are emerging, I have a beginner on here, but we can also say emerging or even starting students. I know that these are some of the scaffolds I'm going to use. I don't need to get fancy. I don't need to look on Pinterest. These are the things I can pull from when I'm lesson planning. Intermediate. These are some things that I'm going to use. Some of them are the same, but maybe I'm taking out some of my words from my word bank. My language structures might be different than an emerging student. I might require less native language resources and more English, less use of translation devices, right? So some of them are the same, but they are scaffolded within the scaffold. Does that make sense? So advanced level, you can use any of these beginner or emerging, intermediate, or expanding supports. And these, so these are for all levels. So graphic organizers, bilingual word-to-word dictionaries, pairs, small groups, sentence frames and stems, which will look different for each level sometimes. Visuals, videos, word walls, modeling, think aloud. These are good for all students. And you might be thinking, how do I scaffold for all students? What am I going to do? Well, no worries. If you're scaffolding for an emerging student, guess what? It's okay for all students. But what you can also do is when you're posting your language objectives, this is an option for you. When you're posting your language objectives up on the board, you can have 3 different options. So bachelor's, this is just an example. Bachelor's might be an emerging objective. Master's is an expanding objective. Doctorate might be a bridging objective. So The difference is in the supports. So an emerging student might need a graphic organizer and also L1 or first language support. An expanding student might need a graphic organizer and just work with a partner. And a bridging student might just only need the graphic organizer. So this is a way to frame it for your students and say, hey, if you're feeling like you need more support today, then choose the bachelor's language objective. If you're feeling like you can kind of bump it up a little today, go for that doctorate level, right? So give them the choice to kind of feel out how they're feeling with the lesson and to push themselves. Here's another way to frame it. Instead of saying graduate, master's, or doctorate, you can label it any way you want. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can do it like oldest, second oldest, newest. TikTok's the newest. So say, you know what, if you want to do a new TikTok strategy, if you want to try that out, do the TikTok language or language objective, right? So you have those options up there. This might just be posted up on your board or on a chart paper. Another easy thing to do is to have a slide where you can easily change out, you can move, you can type in there your verb, your content, and then your scaffolds. You can easily drag them and drop them over. And this was super easy to make. So that's another way to keep it super simple, super duper simple. I have this in my Teachers Pay Teachers. I'll see if I can get a link and send it to you all in email. I will see about that. So any way to make it super simple on you. So lesson steps overview. These are some things that I like to make sure are in my lessons. These are things that are in my lesson plan template. So standard, objectives, content objectives, text and task, language objective, then choose your strategies. So I've got these in order. Then you'll pre-teach or do mini lessons, scaffold with gradual release of responsibility. And then after the you do portion, bring students back to whole group, get some closure and assess. So you can assess by having them go back to the objectives and say, how did we do today? How do you feel? That could even be your exit ticket. Give me a 1, 2, or 3. How did you do with the objectives today? So maybe some of you have seen Carol Salva's infographic. Language acquisition strategies are not one more thing. No, they are the thing, the thing. And when I saw this, it resonated with me because this is just, to me, the meat and potatoes. Of course, we need our text and our content, but without the strategies, we can't get students interacting with language, right? We want them to swirl every lesson, every lesson. Speak, write, read, and listen, and interact and collaborate with each other every lesson. And I know that might seem like, oh gosh, that's a lot. Susan, that's a lot. What you're telling me is I have to do all of these. Yes, it's super simple. Super simple, I promise. Guess what? Have students do? Turn and talk. Okay, that's speaking and listening. Get them to write about it after. That's writing. And then get them to read each other's. There we go. You got it. You got to swirl. So how do I know what strategies to use? How do you know? Well, we need to ask ourselves, what's the task? Daily task. Do they have a culminating task? And of course, what are their language proficiency levels? I need to obviously keep this down here. For example, I come from more of a secondary lens. So I always like to use Romeo and Juliet for my examples. So, okay, our daily task might be read part of scene 3 in Romeo and Juliet. Our culminating task might be to create a one-pager, those are so fun, demonstrating how characters develop in Romeo and Juliet. So I know in the back of my mind, that's their culminating task, but today they're only gonna read. So you know what, since they're reading, I'm gonna think of a reading strategy. I'm actually gonna pull it out of my strategies toolkit. And the one I pulled out was text rendering. So this is directly from my instructional, multilingual instructional strategies toolkit. So I've got different strategies listed out by language domain. So it's easy just to pull them out when you're lesson planning. So text rendering is a great low stress strategy for reading and also speaking. So I know I could add more language domains to help get them to swirl. So it helps them synthesize the information that they're reading. So I know I want them to read scene 3. I'm going to have them in small groups and have them read a text or part of a text. If they're emerging or expanding proficiency levels, I'm only going to have them read a little chunk. And if it's Romeo and Juliet, I'm going to be super dialed in and specific about the chunk and make sure it's an important piece that they need to read. They're going to think about what they read and then highlight an important or a meaningful word, phrase, and sentence. Then they're going to share those out. They're going to use sentence frames while sharing those out. And I would probably give a word bank and say, I want to hear these words while you are doing this activity. So then they're going to reflect and process it all together after each person has shared. And they're going to think about, what are some similarities and differences I noticed between us when we were reading? How does this help me synthesize this text? And so I'm going to give them specific language frames for that. And again, some of these strategies will require some pre-teaching and some practice, right? It's not going to be perfect on the first day or overnight. So, like I said, a bank of strategies are great to have. For example, I have warm-ups for language development. So bell ringers that I know is going to develop language, that I know is going to get students to swirl, and that I know I can have them do in 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. Some of them are kind of fun, so it might take a little bit longer, but we generally want our warm-ups to be kind of short, right? If you want to draw it out and put it as a part of your lesson, if it fits, go ahead. My multilingual learner instructional toolkit, and I'll provide links for these if you want to check them out. This was the one that I said were listed out by language domain. So here you're seeing all the reading strategies and writing. Still some writing, and some of these share other language domains, right? Like they might not be specifically just for one language domain. A lot of writing, then listening, and then speaking. And I'm planning on just adding as I come across new ones that I love and that are effective and research-based too. So again, I'll give the links to those for you all. I'll put it in where you get your freebie. I'll put those links in there. All right. So let's do a quick review. To simplify, we can use lesson plan templates. We can reuse and recycle portions of your plans and have a bank of strategies just to pull from. To spice it up, we can use strategies to get students swirling. Use your own teacher voice and sparkle and use students' interests and build on those assets that they bring. Really build on those. So I want to go back and review our content and language objectives. I want you to kind of reflect and think, do I have these? How did I do? How did Susan do? How did I do? I don't like using the third person. How did I do giving this information to you? So with my students, I would say, you know what? I want to see, just show me right here. Give me a 1, 2, or 3. You don't have to put your hand all the way up in the air to tell everybody. I just want to know. So give yourself a 1, 2, or 3. How did you do with the content objective? I can identify strategies to simplify and spice up my lessons. And our language objective, I can list strategies for simplifying and spicing and a graphic organizing. So since this is virtual and we aren't together in person, this is what I would have you do. If we were in person, it would be very interactive. We would be listening, or not listening, listing, and sharing our ideas in graphic organizers, but this is virtual, which has some benefits, but does have some drawbacks. So at this time, I want to let you all know about our monthly teacher membership if it's something that you're interested in. This is what I do for teachers that I love supporting. I have monthly lesson plans and resources. We have guest speakers. I have checklists and templates and staff PD slides. There's access to previous webinars and conferences that I've done, even if you had to pay, I did put them in there. Access to all previously uploaded lesson plans. I do also have a monthly PD certificate, so you can show your school admin for 2 hours of PD credits every month if you get credit for those. This is for high school or secondary ESL teachers who serve multilingual learners, but we also have some middle school teachers too. So the lessons are definitely, can definitely be beneficial for, I would say, for sure 7th and 8th. If you want to see some of my lessons, I have previews and all my Teachers Pay Teachers products. If you want to go look and think, I don't know, I've never seen these before. Because teaching is personal, right? Teaching is a personal thing. Here's some of our previous guest speakers, Dr. Margarita Calderon, Sydney Snyder, who co-wrote Unlocking EL's Potential, Tan Hun, Eva Grousley, Orly Claffolds, Carly Spino, Jody Knowles. I've got Jody on there twice. She's only come once, but got her on there twice. Liz Mangus from Saddleback Educational Publishing. I love her. Here's a little sneak peek just to see what it looks like inside of the platform. There's no sound. I'm just going to talk through it. So when you first get in, there's a start here. And then there are the modules. So the modules are, okay, here's where you find your lesson plans. Here's where you find instructional strategies, the templates and the checklist. Here's all of our webinars. And there's also a community forum. Instead of Facebook group, I've decided to integrate it into the forum, which is a new thing. So you'll get a welcome. And you'll see, okay, here's my certificate of completion. Here's where I go to fill it in. I have a monthly self-reflection for you. You might be thinking, Susan, I don't have time for that. But you know what? I have a feeling a lot of teachers love to journal. So I added that in there. I personally do. More information about the class framework. And I'm always open for suggestions. So if you want to suggest a lesson plan, if you're like, you know what, I would love a lesson plan about the Odyssey. I will definitely put that down to remember and go back to, depending on time. It might take me a while to get to it, but I take all requests very seriously because I'm here to support you. Here's some testimonials. I'm not going to read them out loud. Go ahead and take a browse. But I love supporting teachers. I did not have, which I've said this story a lot, but I did not have the support as a new teacher, and really just in my first important years as a teacher. I didn't have support at all. I was thrown in. I literally didn't know what to do. So I just feel like it's part of my duty to serve teachers and to give them what they need. I really do. I do this with my district that I work for, and I'm doing it with the membership. I am rooting for you. I am. So My offers for you, if you go to the bit.ly, so bit.ly/ESL in caps, lesson template, not in caps. This is case sensitive. You'll get a lesson plan template to go by. It's the one that I use when I make my lessons. Another offer is $10 off for 10 days. So the coupon code, when you sign up for a monthly membership, you get $10 off, and that is going to last for 10 days. So it expires in 10 days. So you get $10 off your first month. And the coupon code, if you sign up for yearly, is $10 off as well. I also take purchase orders. If you're like, I'm not paying for that, hey, I don't blame you. Ask your district. They might have funds for you, seriously. They might have Title III funds for you. Just ask your ESL department, your multilingual learner department. They might be able to pay for this for you. I don't know, but you don't know until you ask, right? So I'd love to keep in touch. If you're not already following me or in the Facebook group that I have, if you have any questions about the monthly membership, please let me know how I can support you. If you're feeling like support, I just want the support from the Facebook group and from your social media. Perfect. I love sharing free things too. So let me know how I can help you. Send me a message, send me a follow. If this was beneficial for you, I would love for you to share with other teachers at your school, share with other teachers on social media. And I can't wait to hear from you soon. Have a wonderful year and enjoy those multilingual learners. They're truly special. Bye.